Welcome to Comical Recovery. I am your host with the most trauma, comedian Jessica Byrne, creator of the upcoming cartoon Bud Ease, winner of multiple East Coast comedy contests, and 35 consecutive years of life experience in the School of Hard Knocks. Subscribe, hit the like button for recognition, tell all your friends about your new addiction, because sharing is caring. Hello, everyone. The topic today is decisions. Forgive me because I am giggling at myself. I was halfway through reading this and realized I did not record, and so I'm still mentally getting over that. For me, when I make a decision, at least for this one, I feel like I waited too long, and now I feel like all the momentum is here and I'm just rushing through it to get it done. So I'm going to try to be very mindful of not doing that because it's not helpful. So today, old me is showing up to host this topic because I'm still very much in old me thinking on the topic of decisions. And this discussion today will help me open up possibilities for the new me to behave differently. So I grew up with the generational narcissistic stuff happening. And because of that, I was really receptive to servitude. I mean, it's even reflected in my work relationship as far as I generally work in customer service because I'm good at paying attention to people's needs and wants, etc. It's just something that I learned from my childhood. I tend to want to use my brain to think about creative, outlandish endeavors and my hopes and dreams. And that makes it easy for me to let someone else make the decisions about other things in life, like what to eat or what time to work, etc. I have a hard time with decisions. I don't want to make them. I don't trust myself yet to make the right decisions, which the only way to begin to trust myself is to make decisions and see how they turn out and say, hey, that wasn't so bad. It was a pretty good decision. But I still make decisions like picking up the phone to call my ex-boyfriend. So why would I want to trust myself if those are the decisions that I'm going to make? A few episodes back, titled Addiction, old me made a decision to open the door to a toxic relationship again. Oh yeah, that was the ex. I didn't want to overeat or smoke cigarettes, so I quit those habits only to pick them up again once this toxic relationship stressed me out enough. But I really had myself convinced that if I just dipped my toes back into that toxic relationship, I would trade the addiction and chemical dependency that my brain chemistry was making up all natural from the emotional roller coaster ride I was on, that it would supplement the multiple addictions to food, cigarettes, etc. that I had. I just swap. Which, chemically speaking, from the body, of course, it worked. for a while until it didn't, which is what happens. Or at least me, let me reel this back. I make decisions from my subconscious. I do it from a place of comfort. And the problem with that is that comfort, for me, is in chaos. And the obstacle with making a new decision is, they say that it takes 21 days to create a new habit. I think it takes 21 days to start the habit, to really get it in your body and in your maybe brain. But I don't know that it gets in your brain after the 21 days. I think it takes longer, especially if you've been doing the opposite for 33, 34, 40, 50 years. It takes more time to maintain a new thing, a new decision. And I think that's part of what's challenging about making a decision in the first place is, sure, I can start somewhere, but we really don't have a lot of conversations about the follow through. And there's something that we give up. I give up when I let go of making decisions. I give up responsibility, blame. So I kind of scapegoat out of accountability if I don't make the decision. I can blame it all on someone else. The control of decision making is one of the things that has attracted me in the past to toxic people. I don't have to have responsibility for the decisions made, and I can blame someone else if or when things go wrong. I'm relieved of those decisions, and I hate doing things alone. I was taught to second guess myself. And the question is, how do I learn better behavior to replace these impulses? Because that's now what they've turned into. It's more than a habit. It's an impulse, like knee-jerk reaction. Currently, I'm relearning how to recognize signs of fear that prevent me from making new decisions. And I love to contemplate all of the things and feelings, because to me, they are the street signs and signals on how to navigate what's right for me. So if I have fear of making a decision, let's take this podcast, for example. I was hesitant to start again because the old tape playing in my head with negative, critical talk was telling me, well, I'm already messing it up. I may as well quit, blah, 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 blah. Then I realized that in order to make progress, there has to be failure. No lesson of value for me has ever been learned doing every single thing the right way, always, all the time. It's always been when I make a mistake, then I get the opportunity to become better. So I like to look at fear because fear can tell me a lot of what's going on. I had a friend over at my house, and it was months and months ago, and she was very anxious. There was a situation going in her life where her security and safety, her foundation, her trust was all being rocked. She was at my house stomping around with lots of anxious energy. And I noticed that her decisions were not in her best interest. Instead of looking for a job and a place to live, she was looking for a date, and that was a moment of fear for me because I had this person in my house and I could see her anxiety high. I have been there in my life before, and I know that that's not the place and time to say, why are you looking at a dating site when you should be looking at this, or any kind of suggestions, because it's just, her mind is in her subconscious where ever survival mode is, and whatever that looks like for her, which looked like, I need a man or someone to take care of me. I need someone to take care of me, period, and that's what her motivating factor was in the decision process. And fear came up for me. So I started looking at why that was showing up. And I realized that it was showing up because I began to fear my own safety and security. I was having this pull from my conditioning to want to help this person, but also seeing in my forefront of my mind that she didn't know how to help herself, so that wasn't going to work, And so the idea of my space no longer being sacred and all of a sudden being invaded created this fear, which impulsively translated in wanting to lash out. And I didn't. But that chaos was building inside of me, and I didn't know how to react, and it was really stirring me up and disrupting my peace and serenity. And that's why I like looking at my emotions as signs and clues to navigate my next action. Another little thing about me is I like to define words. There are a few things in here that I've written that have some fun definitions. So the definition of it is a conclusion or resolution reached after consideration. So when I'm making a decision, it's always important for me to consider the pros and cons and aspects. In business, they say you have to know your why. And that consideration is where you get your why. Why am I doing this? It's gonna last longer if I have a really solid reason why. And I can even gauge how long it's going to last based on that pros and cons list. I know I talk about numbering and pros and cons, and I probably will talk about it in every episode because it's a very good tool that I use on a regular basis. And it's so that I can weigh the scales and really come to a good resolution or conclusion for myself. Is it really going to benefit me, and what does that look like? The next definition is the action or process of deciding something or resolving a question. And I hate when the word is in the definition. It just irks me. So there you go. And the last one that I found was a formal judgment, and I thought that was interesting too. That's why I like to define the word so that I can see all the dynamic uses for it. And when I see that last definition of formal judgment, it makes me think about how I feel about certain people or a person that I've met or a situation. and realizing that I've already made a formal judgment, whether it's based in facts or feelings or delusion. Either way, I've made a formal judgment. And that's just another thing to recognize so that I can dig a little deeper in seeing where my beliefs lie, and if I think that that belief is serving me or not serving me, so I can use it, replace it, whatever I want to do. So, moving on, there is this really super cool tool called the decision tree. I don't know if I've gone too deeply into this, but I recommend Googling it. It puts everything into like a diagram. And like I said, I'm very visual. So seeing how things can connect or what needs to be done first is helpful when I put it into a happy little diagram. I also answering the what ifs. That was a therapy gem. When I'm anxious, sometimes I don't recognize that I'm rolling through the list of what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this doesn't happen? So I found it very helpful to write my what ifs down and then put a little cherry on top of that and write the what ifs for the good stuff, because it's so easy for me to write the what ifs with the negatives that I absolutely find it beneficial to turn around and write the what ifs for the positives. I personally need to exercise that part of my brain. I need to exercise the positive and potential outcomes to trying different things. And it's all about awareness, being honest with myself, taking time for introspection, and actually taking action. It's not going to do me any good to become aware, to be honest with myself, to do all that introspection and then not take any action and kind of just like use it as an excuse. In our How It Works readings, it says there are some unfortunates that cannot be honest, and that they can't make it or whatever. It's like the reality of them writing that in there was for those of us that want to help others to realize that not everybody wants to be helped and not everybody can be honest. And if they can't be honest, then they're going to be stuck in a spiral. And what I see happen on occasion is that people come in, they hear that, and they use that as an excuse. Well, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, I'm a whatever. And there are some unfortunates that can't be helped because they can't be honest. And that's me. And I'm just going to take ownership of that and walk around and use it so that I can continue to have my drug of choice or my habit or whatever. Because we all get something from those things, and the honesty comes in what do you get from the behavior, the action, whatever is going on. Can you change it? Do you want to change it? Because sometimes I do stupid things and I don't want to change them, but I'm honest about that. And my therapist constantly reminds me, but you don't want to change that. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I was honest. Thank you for reminding me, because I do typically want to forget, but now I can't because I was honest and I told you. Cool. So, am I willing to make the decision or a decision? Any decision? Well, in recovery, we have steps, and although the verbiage is archaic, the steps are pretty helpful. When things are reworded to be more in a more consumable way. I feel it goes from my head to my heart. The reading that I was reading when I wrote this was talking about surrender and how surrender originates in desperation and defeat, and it can grow into an act of ongoing faith, which I've really experienced a lot lately. But just that one sentence is pretty heavy verbiage, and I like to break it down. And I didn't break it down, but generally I would. I think about surrender, and I think about, old me would say, oh, it's giving up. Just surrender. We can give up. That is not what it means. It means to stop fighting, to stop pushing, to stop trying to force something that's not meant to be. And the desperation defeat that comes with the surrender that I end up having, where it says it grows into ongoing faith, I would say that, the universe always shows me that if I would have just let that, or when I let this thing go, it's got something better for me. That's where that faith comes from, so to speak, is that, when I finally have the thing ripped away from me, because generally I'm not letting it go, I'd have to have it ripped out of my hands. Then I get a better thing. But I can't just get the whole thing up. No. Sorry, I'm having a moment with me. When I give up the ability to respond with a reasonable action, I keep myself in a victim state of mind. And this is what I mean by not making a decision. That's what I do. I give up the ability to respond with a reasonable action. And so I keep myself in a victim state. I continue to concretely show my brain more evidence to stockpile that I'm not good enough or worthy to make a decision. Right, wrong, or indifferent, decisions are how I learn, period. I learned that something is not funny by making the decision to blurt it out to my boss and repeat it again because I don't think she got the joke. And at the end of the day, I learned from a friend of mine that it was inappropriate. So, got to make decisions to, got to take that gamble to see. Got to know. It was a horrible example. However, I could list 1,000 decisions from what job should I take? Do I want to go back to school? Do I have to brush my teeth tonight? Every decision I make has a value. It has impact not only on my day-to-day actions, but on my future, obviously. It also has value and impact in opportunities. It affects my thoughts and my emotions, which create vibrations that magnetically draw events and circumstances. And that's all about manifestation, but that's a topic for a different day. We're not going to get into that today. And I'm sure I know there's tons of material on it, so we'll save that. Well, I personally love the decision tree. It's a visual aid that's a graph to be drawn out to see what options are available and what outcomes are possible, positive or negative. Then I, hit it with the scales and find out what's most valuable to me, the most positive and negative what ifs, and if I can get the words out of my swirling head and onto paper, I can look at them in ink and tell them who's boss. And I'll make a to-do list out of them so fast, But that's what I do. I like it. And so currently I'm working on the backup plan. What's my slip stopper, so to speak, for when events stress me out, I'm also working on that, stress management. It's a new concept to me. Very weird, by the way. Very weird concept. In sobriety, they say first your serenity goes, then your sanity, and then your sobriety. And sobriety doesn't just mean, addiction to drugs, alcohol, gambling, food, sex, running, whatever. It's, those last three were my favorite, by the way. Sobriety actually means emotional sobriety. So what's emotional sobriety, Jessica? I'll tell you. I was thinking of a good example. Emotional sobriety is like this. When a circumstance happens and you can just react very calm no matter what the other person or what has happened, like if it's an accident, you react like calm, cool, and collected. That's emotional sobriety. When you don't have that, you react in a defensive way. At least I'm talking about myself, I guess. I react in a defensive way. I am agitated, angry, probably rude, all those things. So preventing that before it happens is the goal. Finding the slip stopper before that cigarette, before the cake, before the toxic horizontal tango. That is the goal for me currently. Of course, awareness is key. That's the first step, and all these little sayings are my street signs to navigate my way out of Gaslight Alley on my everyday personal guilt trip back to the heavenly gates of sanity, back to Serenity Island, because that's where I like to live. Personally, I need to recognize when serenity has left the building. That's a pretty big clue in retrospect. However, I catch myself when I've lost my sanity. It's the norm before the sobriety thing came into play. Life looked like a long stretches of semi-managed drunken chaos and total dry drunk insanity. It's like one or the other, no in-betweens. As I contemplate how this shows up in my life, I think about the conversation I had in therapy with the critical, nurturing parent. This is termed from Freud by the superego, the ego, and the id. My therapist calls it critical, nurturing parent is the top. Then there's the adult, and then there's the inner child. And I don't really even feel like I have an adult inside to negotiate. I feel like I just have a teenager in there that's like ignoring everything. Like, I don't care what you guys do. Also, I'm cultivating the nurturing parent. Really, it's just the critical parent that's living up there in my head. But the superego is the moral conscience. The ego is the realistic part that mediates desires of the id and the superego. Id being the inner child. The id also is the body, the instincts, the physical stuff that we feel that is navigating and cluing you into what your basic needs are. My basic needs, whatever. And it's the unconscious level that operates immediate gratification, irrational, impulsive kind of behavior. Knowledge is so imperative to my growth. The more questions I have and answer, the wealth of opportunities for healing and growing show up. Reading without acting is wasted time and added frustration. It's reading something that sounds relevant and reasonable and never putting it into action or immediately doubting that it could work for myself or that I have the ability to have it last for a long time is just setting me up for failure. So I have to, that's why I like to look at my thoughts, to tackle all the obstacles that are inevitably coming my way. If I can just look at them, give them a good old glance before I start the journey, I have at least a 50% chance of success. So writing the thoughts, fears, hopes, and dreams I have for a decision, thought, or behavior, a desire to change, is part of the action that I can't miss. It's only then that I gain the perspective that I need. I see how deep this feeling or insane thought runs, where it comes from, and who it's attached to, and then I can weed the garden of my mind, get to the taproot. Have you ever weeded a garden and the same weed keeps popping up? If you pull it all the way out, sometimes you'll find that the taproot, the beginning of the root, is actually in the back of the garden, way past the point of where you found it actually blooming. And that's kind of how I like to dig up deeply rooted beliefs. That's when things last for me. Through discovery, trial, error, new plans, actions, and repeating that cycle, is where lasting change is firmly planted. I look at life as if I'm a mad scientist on the search for complete healing and realistically balancing healthy habits that create a heaven on earth kind of experience. That's what I'm really after. If I'm going to live, I'm interested in enjoying my time by living and treating my vessel well, which is not what I learned to do as a child. Not a part of my impulsive behavior. Many times that slips my conscious mind and it just stews in my preconscious levels of my mind, like bickering parents fighting over who gets to discipline the rebellious subconscious again. And rebellious subconscious is just happy that there's any kind of attention around her. It's a sick place, my head. That's okay. I don't mind. It keeps things interesting. And from indecision, I get to live in my comfort zone of insanity and helplessness, which is a self-seeking place of validating my worth from its ego existence. So, how do I validate my existence? The answer to that is the lock that frees me from the chains of people-pleasing. So, of course, here we go, defining words again. Validate, check or prove the accuracy of something, demonstrate or support the truth or value of existence, the fact or state of living or having objective reality, continued survival, and a way of living. Well, I believe I received my answer from those definitions above. Because the facts are that I have absolutely undoubtedly undoubtable support that the truth, or good Lord, I can't talk anymore, guys. It's gone too long. You've seen that I've gone way over a half an hour, and way over means 6 minutes, and now I'm just blubbering. Let me get back to what I was trying to say, which is, from these two definitions, I absolutely have proof that I have demonstrated value of continued survival, or I have supported the truth of continued survival. I am very much surviving and good at it, is what I am trying to say. So I'll just remind myself that that's what I have to validate my existence. I've definitely survived. That's why I like to define words, so that I can put into context what I'm after, like, how do I validate my existence? Oh shit, all I needed to do was say that, is there truth that you survived? Why, yes there is. I sure have. 36 years, here I am, still here. Alright, so what are the benefits of making decisions? Let's wrap this up. Golly, I'm tired of hearing myself. I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to get insecure. Those voices are coming back, and they're quite loud. So the benefits of making decision: I learn what I like and what I don't like. I learn about my intuitions when things go right or wrong, and I learn how that shows up in my physical body with, they say trust your gut. So my body will tell me with physical pain or discomfort whether the decision is good or bad for me. It's a clue that navigates those things. Decisions for me allow me to let go of other people's needs and desires. When I don't make a plan, someone else will make plans for me and rob me of my time and potential life experiences. When I wait on others to make decisions for me, I take opportunities away from discovering something new about myself and the people around me. Their acceptance or rejection tells me who they are, what they're capable of. And I know if I ask a friend to go on a walk, every time she says yes and turns around and cancels an hour before, that person's not capable of making plans. It doesn't make them bad. It doesn't make them good or whatever. It actually makes them an excuse for me to hold myself back if I'm constantly relying on them to make a decision so that I can act. So, when old instincts hit, what do? Well, currently, writing, taking time with myself, trying to prepare a plan for when that fear and excuse kicks in, a plan of action for the natural reaction of talking myself out of decision or action. Recently, I went up to a comedy workshop just to check it out, and it was about 4 o'clock, and it didn't start until 6:30, and I was only an hour away. But I left early because I knew that was about the time that old me was going to start talking me out of making that decision. So as soon as I heard those little voices in my head, I started packing my things and getting my butt out of the door. So that's what I had to do in order to commit to that decision and not talk myself out of it. So I would go into change because that's what it looks like I wrote next on. But I have less than 4 minutes left, and I am happily going to shut this topic down. If we feel the need to pick it back up, we can. But not today. So if you have feedback or questions or comments on this topic, please leave them below. Message me if you know me, because most of you do. And keep on listening, because I'm going to keep on making these. It'll make me feel better about overthinking, if nothing else. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed our time together. Remember, for me anyways, recovery always comes in layers. And laughter's the best medicine. So I appreciate you listening, sharing, subscribing, and passing me around like your favorite doobie. Sharing is caring. So I'll see you next time for more comical recovery with your friend and host, comedian Jessica Byrne.